gonna do the intro for the show, the intro for you and the festival real fast, and then can we go through your comedy life and then plug the show?
Yeah, however you want to do it. However you want to do it. I'm here now.
Thank you so.
Whichever way you want to go.
Perfect. And I'm just waiting for this to look like there. We are up on Facebook. It's on your page. I tagged you.
Awesome.
Okay, so I'm going to go through this rather fast, you guys, so I can take off these Sally Jesse Raphael meets Catwoman glasses off. So I'm Linda Marcus Smith. This is Comic Spot. As you know, Comic Spot was started by this Army veteran, gangster, I know. Yeah, gangster Granny here. I started this just so I could vet out veterans of comedy. Today, we have one of those for you right here. Go nowhere, sit down, mingle, breathe on each other, whatever. Trust me, nothing goes viral around me. Today, we have the amazing starter, promoter, host, owner of the Good Karma Festival, which starts Monday. Side note, I'm in it. Here today, his name is Frank Vignola. He's right over there. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Vignola or Vignolia?
Well, no, it's Vignola, although the Italian pronunciation, which nobody ever uses, is Vignola, like lasagna.
Where, I love it.
Yeah.
Vignola?
But that is the way people actually say it. But even my family says Vignola now. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's Vignola is the last
They've become Americanized, huh?
Yeah.
It's not any less syllables to say it right.
No, it's really not.
So I want to tell you the intro that Frank gave me. My memory is for nothing, so I'm going to read it. As seen on Amazon Prime, you guys. Amazon Prime. Sirius XM. Are you serious? Yes, we're serious. XM. Comedy Central, you guys. You know what I'm talking about. Don't act like that. Just for laughs. Are you kidding me? And stop everything. This Army veteran is so stoked that Frank Vignola has also performed with Armed Forces Entertainment. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Anybody who entertains the troops is the best of the best in my book. Sorry, but I am prejudiced. Thank you for serving our country and jokes to our people. You are amazing. Thank you and welcome to the stage, the person promoting his festival, Good Karma Festival. And I think he's got a lot of good karma going for him. Welcome, Frank Vignola. Woo!
Thank you. You know, it's funny that you mentioned the Armed Forces Entertainment thing because, I mean, kind of dating myself by sharing this, but we were part of the second tour out after 9/11.
Oh my God.
Yeah. The first tour out, the only thing I remember about the first tour out, I forget who was on it, but I know that they had the Baltimore Ravens cheerleaders on the first tour out, the Armed Forces Entertainment. The second tour out was some comics and some break dancers. And we went over to the Middle East for 30 days for the month of June, the summer after 9/11. So we weren't even in Iraq yet as a war. We were just in Afghanistan and around. So we went to, oh man, come on, Frank. We went to Afghanistan. We went to Bahrain. We went to
United Arab Emirates.
Well, we only were there to use their airport. Bahrain, Qatar or Qatar. I still don't know which it is, Qatar or Qatar. Saudi Arabia, Pakistan. I said Afghanistan. We were on an aircraft carrier, the JFK, in the Indian Ocean in an undisclosed location for a week. Yeah. And when we were in Afghanistan, it was only for 3 days, but we were at Kandahar, which for anybody that remembers the Iraq War, or even to this day stays up to, because we're still there. And Kandahar is that airport that has been back and forth. Hasn't been an airport forever. It's been an army base for one side or the other throughout for the past 30, 40, 50 years, however long this has been going on. So it was an eye-opening experience. I would say, as you know, a comic, like a lot of, I'm from New York. Well, I live in New York. I'm from the Philadelphia area originally. I would say, like a lot of comics, especially out here on the East Coast, I'm a lefty, I'm a Democrat, but by the same
I thought
token,
you meant left-handed.
no. I mean, like lefty, like the Democrat, you know, but that has nothing to do with entertaining the troops. Like, you can go over and entertain the troops, even if it's in the middle of a military action you don't agree with politically, because it's different stuff. And you got to support the troops. And the thing that just amazed me about them was how young they all were. They're so young. Like, the enlisted men are only 18 or 19. The officers taking us around were in their 20s. Lieutenants and captains, like in combat, 25 years old. When I was 25 years old, I was like in my 7th year of college. I wasn't even done yet. You know, so it's just so amazing. And wow, you really do have to separate the politics from the military, you know, and you really have to separate the two.
In fact, I think they should separate politics from egg yolks.
Everything at this point, but it was an eye-opening experience. And then after that, I mean, if we want to talk about the military stuff, then when I got back after that, I don't know if you remember, but briefly, there was a comedy show called the USO Comedy Show, but it was on Comedy Central, and Susie Essman was the host.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Right. I was the warm-up comic for 3 tapings of that at McGuire's Air Force Base here in New Jersey. And then since then, anytime I do a show, if somebody in the military shares they're in the military, I'll stop the show and I'll say, okay, I'm going to do now some of the material that I did on the USO tour just for you. Even though it's 15 years old at this point, I'm going to do it just for you. And the rest of you folks are just going to have to deal with it, because this guy deserves 5 minutes of stuff just for him.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's really an eye-opening kind of a thing to be involved in it. And I wish I don't know who to talk to, but I'd like to do more of it. I would like to do more Armed Forces Entertainment and USO stuff.
I'll give you all the names of everybody I know that's involved.
I would love to do more of it. It was, wow. I mean, that month in the Middle East, that close to 9/11 with those guys, you know, with everything we were going through, let alone coming back and doing other stuff, just really, it really did have kind of a profound effect on the way that I saw the world. Because I was one of the guys that wasn't necessarily in favor of what our government was doing in response to everything that was going on. But once I got over there, I'm like, oh no, we got to do what we got to do. Because these are kids. These are guys that would be in grad school if they were here in the States, or still going to school or whatever. So anyway, yeah.
You and I could talk. You and I could talk forever, because I've put on my own shows up and down the West Coast and in Manhattan at the VA hospital.
Right.
So you and I could talk forever about this, and you would not bore me one bit.
There's a lot of good stuff out there that a lot of people do not hear about, that comics do. And yes, celebrity comics do them too. And when celebrity comics do them, that's when you hear about them. But when you hear about comics, you'll see almost every comic, you know, talk about entertaining the troops at some point, whether it's with the USO or Armed Forces Entertainment. You'll see people doing hospital shows here in New York, like Gotham Comedy Foundation, and going and doing shows at Sloan Kettering. There's so much stuff that goes on for people that need it and deserve it, you know, that I think a lot of folks don't know about, unless a big name comic decides to, you know, back when Robin went over and that kind of stuff, that's when they hear about it. But you would be amazed, if you're not a comic, at the number of shows for the military and for first responders and fundraisers and for hospitals that people do. Yes. I mean, and most of the time, everybody's able to put aside their personal stuff, or put aside their political stuff, or put aside whatever their points of views are, and show up and get the job done, you know?
Absolutely.
And then we come back and rake each other over the coals on Facebook the next day. But at least you do the show for them. And that's the important thing.
You go out to a battle zone and come home for a Twitter war.
Exactly. You know, exactly.
And
there's so many jokes that I
tell me some.
I just wish I could still do them. I just wish I could still do them. But they're kind of inside, or like there was this one story I tell where we were in Afghanistan and they wanted to send, you were thinking about sending some of the comics out on a flatbed truck to do a show in the desert for some of the guys. I don't know if it was like on forward posts or whatever they call it, but guys that are out there. So you'd have to go out there with like a garage band mic hooked up to a generator and a microphone to do a show for these guys. And somebody was saying, well, if we do that, you know, we better make sure everybody knows, you know, if we put them on a pickup truck and send them out there, we better make sure that the guys know in the drone trailer that we're using the same brand of pickup truck as Al Qaeda does. And I said, yeah, maybe somebody might want to give them a memo about that. And you can't tell stories like that because people just don't get it. But that kind of stuff just happens in real time, that everybody's in a Toyota truck over there, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it's just such a. I think which branch of the service were you in?
Army, 73 to 76 during NAM. I was in Germany.
Okay, there you go. So that was amazing. And then the thing that was amazing also was being on the aircraft carrier too, because that really is, at least in the Army, and believe me, it's dangerous and things have really changed. This was, again, right after 9/11. But we were on these military bases that were supposedly imaginary military bases that nobody was supposed to know about, because the government of Bahrain will make an agreement with the government of the United States that you can put a military base here, but we don't want our citizenry to know because they might get upset. So it's an undisclosed location, secret military base, but worst kept secret, you know, in the entire country. Okay. Everybody knows it's there. Yeah. But at least guys get to rotate out, and then they get to and I'm not going to mention any names because I don't even know if these are still locations, but you get to rotate out and you get to go to a base that's a few miles behind the line or whatever it's called now. And there's trailers set up where there's like a Pizza Hut. They probably didn't have this in your day, but they literally have this like a strip mall now. Like there's trailers set up like a trailer park, and one's a Pizza Hut, and one's a Dunkin' Donuts, and one's a PX. And at least they get that. These guys on the aircraft carrier, they're on a floating city that can't go anywhere. You know, it's very self-contained, you know, a boat like that. And at the time I was still a smoker. So you could only smoke on one part of the ship and you had to smoke over the rail and off that. So all this kind of stuff, it was just, you know, my hat is off to them because it's something my hat is off to you. I never did military service. You know, I used to do jokes like, you don't want me in the Army because, you know, in short time, we'll all be eating hummus. Okay. You don't want me in the Army, but you know, and it's that kind of thing. But I'm happy to entertain. And the job that people do in our military, I think, is really misunderstood and really taken for granted too. Because with the volunteer military, isn't it only 1% of the entire nation has actually ever been in the military or done military service or something incredibly small like that?
It's small. I don't know.
Yeah, with the volunteer military, not with the draft back with World War II and NAM. But since then, with the volunteer military, whatever our standing military is, plus all of the people that are associated, well, there's 350 million people in the country. So it's a very small, it's a single digit percentage, you know, that is doing all this. So listen, folks, I'm the biggest liberal out there. I'm the biggest lefty out there. And I gotta say that to the troops right there. Maybe not that to the commander in chief, maybe not that to the politicians, but to the troops, absolutely. And I think people are getting more and more hip to that. You know, I don't think people are conflating military personnel with military policy anymore, or government policy. That's just my opinion. Man, we're turning this into 60 minutes.
It's okay. I just want to say,
people think it's comedy, and
I'm from Portland, Oregon, and people there are so one way as opposed to another. And when I went on stage, and I always start off with, you know, I served in the military. I was a woman in the army, a woman's army corps. They disbanded. I am still here. So who's winning now? You know, something like that, you know.
Right,
And
right,
the crowd, the sphincters in the crowd would tighten up if you talk military, right? They don't
right.
want to. And I just go, it's okay. I get it, Portland. I heard your sphincters tighten. I'm just the reason why you're speaking English. So that's cool.
It is amazing. Like it is amazing how people do um, attach like uh, judgments or assessments, or they decide something about a person immediately if it disagrees with their political point of view. You know, I mean, yeah, Portland. I mean, Portland is the town right now that aren't they the ones right now that don't even have a police force, like the protesters have created a safe zone and all that. So yeah, they're crazy anti-military. You know,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Meanwhile, if I, you know, if I did some of my material about not being a big fan of Trump's in certain places, you know, they'd be upset I was wearing a mask and making fun of Trump. And it's almost like, you know what? Just laugh at the jokes and somebody else's point of view. You believe what you believe and have a good time. It doesn't mean, you know, I used to teach comedy, and I used to say to comics, one of the ways to tell that you're really good at this is when you can make people that don't agree with you laugh.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and that's what I feel about political comedy and social commentary and stuff. And let's be honest, you talk about who was a great comic. George Carlin. People will always mention George Carlin somewhere in their list.
Yes.
George Carlin was very anti-war and very liberal or whatever, but that doesn't mean that somebody in Texas couldn't watch him and laugh.
Absolutely.
So, right. And the other way around, I mean, Nick DiPaolo has fans out there, and right now Nick's very on the conservative side. Dennis Miller has found a home for himself at Fox, all that kind of stuff. So, to each his own. You can laugh for an hour and a half at somebody, even if they don't, you know, vote the same way you do, is my point of view.
Yes.
Yeah,
Can
that's
I
my
tell
point of view.
you, can I tell you my joke that I say when I'm out entertaining veterans at VA
Yes,
hospitals?
please
I
do.
say, I say, you know, I served in the army from 73 to 76. And now I'm telling you, there's nothing I'd rather do than make veterans like you laugh. In fact, every time I'm making you forget the nonsense you had to do so I can sling jokes in English and not Deutsch. Holy Toledo, I'm
Right.
excited. I feel tingly from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet, tingly, all over tingly. And that's how I know I'm always going to be out there trying to find a new GI spot.
Yes, and the level of appreciation uh, when you do a show for military personnel is just through the roof. They
Yes.
they 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 couldn't be more accommodating or nicer. You know, even if you know, even if you're a hippie beatnik to them,
Yes.
they still love it, and they're still nice as heck to you. And you know, and then when they find out you're from New York, they want to ask you if you ever been to a Yankees game, or you know, do you like the, you know, Jets or Giants? And because a lot of these guys too, they're not from New York, and some
No.
folks have never been to New York or only came here once, and it still has that sort of mystical allure to them. New York is that kind of that city on that hill, you know, that.
Yes.
So that's always nice too.
Yes.
You can't say enough nice things. You really can't say enough nice things about these folks. And again, I just think people need to make a real effort not to conflate the if they're more on my way of thinking um, than somebody else's might be. Just don't conflate the military with the guys that you're trying to vote out of office, because they're two different things. Is my
Thank,
point of view about that.
thank you.
That being said, I got to ask you, since you're military and you're in Vegas,
Yes.
so do you like your mayor, or do you think she's a nut too?
Nutcase.
Yeah, okay. Because you never know whether or not people are going to be like, no, she has every right. You know what I mean? There's people that are fans of everybody. But
Right.
yeah,
No,
she had her moment in the sun a couple of months ago, didn't she?
she got her 15 minutes of fame, whether she wanted it or not.
Right.
Just don't be stupid. That's, you can be out there and have your opinions, but have some meat to your substance, please.
Right.
She was way
Absolutely.
off, way off. So
Absolutely.
I want to talk to you about your childhood and getting into comedy yourself
Okay.
through up to the, if you could do that, up through the Good Karma Festival and then plug that.
Okay. So to give you the thumbnail sketch, I was born and raised in Wilmington, Delaware, which is actually Joe Biden's home state, and actually just 30 minutes south of Philadelphia. So it's that whole Eastern Seaboard thing. It's right under Jersey, right? So for the folks out there that don't know, so if you're looking at the East Coast, it would almost, the big cities would almost be like, it would be like there would be DC, then Baltimore, then Philly, and the small little city amongst the three big cities right under Philly would be Wilmington, Delaware, right there.
Okay.
And born and raised there, went to the University of Delaware, was a theater major, was
Wow.
one of these guys that always wanted to, be an actor. Always wanted to be an actor from even when I was a kid. Came to New York right after, well, did a little theater first, then came to New York and tried to be an actor first. And, only had limited success. I was like everybody else up here. I was in my 20s. I was a struggling actor, struggling young actor, that kind of thing. And I went home. Uh, I, this was right before my 30th birthday. So 5 or 6 years, I was just a straight actor up here who had been classically trained in Shakespeare and all that stuff in college and was just trying to make it. So doing restaurant jobs and auditioning for off-Broadway stuff and just trying to break in New York City. This is the 80s. And I went home to do an internship with the Delaware Theater Company. And a friend of mine was doing what we would call a bar show. I didn't know that at the time, but he was dabbling in stand-up comedy. This is 1990, and he would do shows in the back rooms of bars. And because I was their big actor friend from New York, quote unquote, they would ask me to come and watch and give them feedback on what I thought the show looked like, and did I think it was funny, and all that kind of stuff, even though comedy wasn't really my thing. So I watched and helped guys write jokes for a little while. And then eventually, that July of 1990, got up the nerve to try it myself at my very first open mic. And
Wow.
yeah, and it went the way everybody's first open mic goes. I came back to New York because the internship was over in Delaware, but I still thought of myself as an actor, but I thought that I was going to try and do stand-up comedy on the side, but I still thought of myself primarily as an actor. That November,
Uh-huh.
I was in a comedy contest and I had that show. And as a comic, I'm sure you'll identify with this. I came in second in the contest, but it was that first night after doing comedy here and there for 3 or 4 months where I felt like a comic and everything came together and it felt sort of natural. And I remember saying to my girlfriend at the time, you know what? I'm not an actor anymore. I'm a comic. And from that point on, I kind of like switched careers and never really looked back. From that point on, I stopped pursuing the acting. I started pursuing the comedy full time. And I was lucky my first couple of years after being in the business, only 2 or 3 years. So this is now the early 90s. I got a manager. And well, I'm sorry, actually, back then it was an agent, not a manager yet. And he sent me out on tours. So I kind of became a road warrior that worked all over the country throughout most of the 90s. That was the first, I'm going to say, 8 or 9 years of my career, and definitely the first 5 years of my professional career. And then right before Y2K, I came back to New York because I was tired of being on the road and wanted to do it in New York and still would work the road, but center it out in New York. So that's when I started to get more into the New York scene instead of being like a road guy that worked all over the country, and still did some road stuff, but you would try and do like 2 weekends a month in the city and 2 weekends a month on the road. And then a couple years after that, I started teaching comedy on the side. so I didn't have to go on the road as much. I did that until last year for like 15 years. I also taught. And yeah, and along the way was lucky enough to get to be on Tough Crowd with Colin Quinn and get to do the Montreal Comedy Festival and get to work with a lot of big names. And then the acting kind of came back around a little bit, because what will happen, and this has probably happened to you, somebody will see you at a comedy club who's a legit TV or film person, and they'll be like, hey, can you act? Because you would be really good at. So you end up doing like a small part on, you know, some Dick Wolf thing, or you end up being in a commercial, or you end up being in somebody's student film at NYU, or a short film that goes off to a festival, or you get a big break like a Jim Gaffigan, and you end up, you know, on that 70s show, or Judah Friedlander, and you end up on 30 Rock. I mean, those things happen too.
Or Brian Christopher Roach, and you wind up on Kevin Can Wait.
Right, any of those. And so a little bit of the acting eventually kind of came back, but since then, that's what it's been. That switch just flipped in November of 1990, and I went from being an aspiring actor to a working comedian. Like, this is what I do for a living. I don't have a day job. I don't have a side job. You probably know you wear a lot of different hats. So you do some teaching, you do some writing, you do some consulting, you do some producing, but it's all under the same tent. You work for yourself. You're your own company. And by the grace of God, or whatever higher power you believe in, I have been lucky enough, both in lean times and in good times, to do that for like 25 years. And so, and there's still a lot of things I want to do. I would still like, I'd like to do Colbert. I never did Stephen Colbert's show. I would like to do that. Everybody always has their eye on a Netflix special, although a lot of guys are producing their own stuff and getting it on Amazon Prime and stuff like that now too. Lots of plug and plays going on. But yeah, I mean, I did, I was lucky enough to be on an episode of Tough Crowd on Comedy Central with Kevin Hart, back before Kevin Hart blew up, and Patrice O'Neill when he was still with us back in the day. And, I get to do shows with, I'll be on a show and suddenly there might be somebody like Judy Gold or Brian Scott McFadden or Laurie Kilmartin or, Wally Collins or Mike York. And these are like the regular guys in New York, just like I'm sure in Vegas and LA, they have the same thing. And it's just like, and you'll go, oh, wow, there's Patton Oswalt working on material for his next thing. It just happened to drop by Gotham on the same night I'm at Gotham. How cool is that? Oh, there's Jerry Seinfeld. Oh, there's, and the list goes on and on. And it's been that kind of thing, because I don't know if your show is like an industry show, so it's mostly watched by other artists, or if it's watched more by civilians.
Both.
So when I say civilian folk, by the way, it's not an insult. I just mean you're not in the entertainment industry, so I call you a civilian. But I was almost cursed. There's a boatload of people in the entertainment world that you might not know, or you might recognize from like, I think I saw him once on that, or you look familiar from that, or didn't I see you back in the day on whatever, but like are out there doing it. Like there's just a whole network of incredibly talented people that you've never heard of, that are making a real good living at it, doing private parties, doing cruise ships, doing colleges, doing clubs, writing for shows, just doing all kinds of things. There are great working artist communities. And when I say working artists, I mean it's like, because normally when you say I'm a comic, people will be like, oh, really? What restaurant? That old acting joke, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, they're talking about like in New York and LA and Chicago and Toronto and Atlanta and maybe Vegas and a few other places. I mean, this is a working community, whether you know that guy's name as well as you know Dave Chappelle's name or not.
Yes.
And this guy makes a very nice living working in that showroom 50 weeks a year, making people laugh, millions of people from all over the country or all over the world come into that showroom. And you may not know, but you're going to laugh your butt off. And then afterwards, maybe you'll become a fan and start to follow them. There's a lot of comics out there like that. So
a lot.
That's why I hope this isn't the new normal and live shows come back, because that's when you get to see those folks. And not that it's not great to see the Dave Chappelle's and the Hannahs of the world and whatever on Netflix, but when you get to go out live, whether it's a show for Army vets, or whether it's a show at a showroom in Vegas, or whether you're at, the Ice House in Pasadena, whatever, Ice Palace, which is it? Ice House? Ice House in Pasadena, or Gotham, or the Comedy Cellar here in New York, or whatever, you will be amazed at the people you see that are hysterical that you don't know.
That's right.
That you don't know. But the thing is, you might know them. You might know them. And I'm not afraid to admit that I'm a boomer. And back in my day, and they don't say this anymore, because it's kind of a little sarcastic. But they used to say, be careful how you treat people, because, you may meet them on your way up or on your way down on the cruise ship. And that was kind of a knock of cruise work. And now everybody wants cruise work. Now everybody wants to do the cruises because they go all over. They pay so well, and it's solid work. So that's not a knock on cruise work, but it's that old thing of be careful, because whoever you're being nasty to coming in the door, they may be the ones walking by you when you're walking out. And there is a lot of that in this business. And
there is. And there's the opposite too. There's where people are only nice because people can do them favors. It's like,
there's a lot of that. This is also just between everybody who's watching, a very toxic business too. Yeah. It's very toxic.
Yes. We've known people who have off themselves.
Yeah, it's not an easy way to go, and you need a thick skin, and there's a lot of changes that need to be made in just about every area. Don't get me wrong, but
every day I remind myself, if something bothers me, the way you get a person, or the way I get treated or not treated, I remind myself it's a business. It's just a business. Right. That's their way of handling business. It's not personal, it's business.
That, and also the thing that you finally find out if you hang around long enough, is we're really not competing with each other. And I don't mean to get all touchy-feely, but we are not competing with each other. Mm-hmm. Let me give you an example. Whoever's watching
yes, they will.
If Linda and I were both up for the same comic spot on a Friday night on Colbert, we really wouldn't be competing with each other, because things are so different, and there's so many different reasons that they choose to give somebody something, that it's not like, oh, she got 12 laughs, he got 11, let's go with her. Oh, he got, he knows the producer, she doesn't, let's go with it. There's so many decisions that go into like why it is that certain people get certain kinds of work. And it's not always good decisions, by the way, either. We got to get rid of a lot of the toxicity. We got to get, more tolerant. We got to get better representation. We got to get more opportunities for women to headline. Just all of it. Every movement that's out there fits comedy too. But that's the thing, that, you have the opportunity to address it. And I think it's getting better. And I think the artistic community is embracing a lot of the changes. And so you don't learn till you've been around for a while. You don't learn till you've lost a few rounds that you're not really competing against who you think you're competing against. People get things for a myriad of reasons. And it's a weird business, because it's a business that you could be in forever and look like you don't have a shot and suddenly catch on. Or if you have the right 7 minutes, you can catch on after a cup of coffee when nobody knows who the hell you are. So it really is, I've heard a lot of comics say, or I think there's even a club owner, but I don't want to put words in his mouth, so I won't mention who it is, who tells everybody it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. My version of that is it's a marathon until it's a sprint.
Wow.
Everybody's in a marathon until they catch on, then it's a sprint. Wow. So it's the only business where, as long as you can write a joke and get to a microphone, you got a shot. And and on the other side, you're always only 5 minutes away from fame, because that's how long a late night set is, 4.5 minutes.
Wow.
So think about it that way. Think about it that way. Yeah.
So Comic Spot, I love it. I know you've loved it. Let's keep it going. I need your help. I developed it so you out there can get to know comics, whether they're brand new or 45 years in the biz. We're going to get to know them so you'll know who to love. So all I need you to do is donate to my Cash App, and that is Linda Marcus Smith. I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, so you've talked about your life, you've talked about your work, the entertainment that you've done for the armed forces with Armed Forces Entertainment. Now let's go into and segue off into Good Karma Festival. Where did where did the idea come from? How long you've been doing it? And why did you let me in?
Okay, because you asked nicely. And okay, so, and by the way, I apologize for drinking on camera. I know some people think that's rude, but here in New York, for those of you that aren't here in New York, we have these apartments. My building was built in 1929, and I ain't giving up this apartment because it's rent stabilized, right? I got a 1-bedroom for a rent that would make you pull your hair out. It's so good. But they're like, they're hot boxes. So you're just sweating, you're just sweating it off the whole time you're here. So that's why I got the iced tea going. But anyway, so the festival. Okay, so now I don't know if you or your viewers have noticed, but TV has tightened up a little bit in the past 10 years, and festivals are now very big. And if you notice, the business seemed to go through, there was a while there when shows were really big. And then, sitcoms started out big, then reality shows kind of knocked them out for a while. Then everybody had their own podcast. It just seems like for the last few years, there's still TV opportunities, but not as many as there were back in the day. And there are festivals everywhere. It's not just Montreal and San Francisco and Boston anymore. They popped up all over the place, which I think is great, because what it does is it gives a lot of young comedians who are developing their voice an opportunity to get a little confidence, to get a little humble brag going, to get a little juice, to get all that going. So I think they're great. And then it also gives, some folks that have been around a while a chance to maybe main stage or headline that festival and get to know some people within the business, do some networking, get to know some new folks. Anyway, why am I mentioning all that? Because it seems to me festivals are now the rage. That's what everybody's credits are, more than they used to be TV. So here we are in this shutdown. I don't know about you guys. I haven't worked I'm the equivalent of laid off. I haven't done a show like we used to do shows since the second Saturday in March, where you would leave your house and there was a sold out room and you got paid money and that sort of thing. So in effect, all gig workers and all working artists have been laid off since the middle of March, at least here in New York, where Governor Cuomo is really very tight with the way he's protecting the city and state. Some people like it, some people don't. Anyway, so because of that, and there's not a lot of live shows, now everybody is doing all these kind of things, these remote kind of shows, these podcasts, these interview shows, talk format, magazine format, stand-up shows, and all that. And I was doing a show every Tuesday at 8:00 throughout all of Phase 4 called The Quarantine Cafe. And it was a stand-up show. And I started to think about it, and I started to think, like a lot of us, I thought when this first started, it would be over by the summer. I think a lot of us thought in March, by August, we'll be back to normal. Maybe we'll have to wear masks or social distance. I think it's pretty clear that this is going to be with us for a while, one way or another. There will be people who disagree. I think in maybe some of the red states, they might do a few more live things, but basically, especially on the East Coast in New York, a whole remote thing is kind of where it's at. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to put together a festival. I know everybody in the business. I've been around forever. I'm going to put together a festival. I'm not going to, and the reason that I came up with the phrase good karma is I don't want it to cost anybody a dime. I want everybody to feel safe. I want everybody to be included. It's now 21 shows that has 104 comics in it and counting. And didn't cost anything to submit. Some people who I didn't know who asked me to do it, I said, could you send a tape just so I could see what they did? But I didn't turn anybody down. Meanwhile, I asked some comics who are friends of mine, who are some of the, bigger names here in New York. Would you mind anchoring some of the shows during the week or doing the weekend shows. So it's a great mix of pros and newer folks. And I just thought to myself, this is the time, you know, I've been saying on it's kind of a lame joke, but been saying on every podcast. So this is my Miss America answer, right? Remember the Miss America pageant? And they'd always ask the question and the answer would be world peace. Yeah. It's like, now is the time to give back, right? Now is the time when we're all stuck anyway, and we're in a new phase of this, and we don't know where it's going, and we don't know what's going on, and some of the benefits have run out. Now is the time. What a perfect time to like just do something community-wide that everybody can participate in, that's about tolerance, that's about inclusion, that doesn't cost anybody a dime, that they can tell their friends about. Their friends can come and watch it for free as well. They can come and watch it whether they want to be a box like you are with their name and their picture and a mic, or people can change their name on their box and leave their picture and mic off and still hear on a Zoom show. And I just thought to myself, it'd be good to do community-wide, and it would be good to do like for people who are every month we need to come up with different options for people stuck in their house, you know?
Absolutely.
And then the other thing is like the world is going to get back to normal. Hopefully it'll be by next year. So maybe next year the festival will go live.
Ooh.
Okay. But in the meantime, let's do it remote. And if we're going to do it remote, then let's do it as nicely and as friendly and as easy opening and as low impact aerobics as we can, so as it doesn't end up being anything other than anybody's got to just show up and you know, click a link and do their thing. And that's basically what I decided to do. And it took me a couple of weeks to set up, and I'm still working on it even up to the last minute. I've been you know, working on promotions, doing a lot of shows like this for people who are nice enough to allow me to come on and do my infomercial. I should bring the Ginsu knives with me. And and I added some. So what's happening with the festival, and you were nice enough to put up the link. You just go to the festival website, and all 27 shows are listed, and under every lineup, there's the link. So all you have to do is click on the link at showtime for that show. And besides doing, it started out being 14 stand-up comedy shows. You're on one of them, which were shows Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of next week at 7 and 9. Then I added a podcast that I'm going to host at 4 o'clock every day. So on Monday, I'm going to have some New York club owners on to talk about the state of the industry.
Awesome.
On Tuesday, I'm going to reunite with my old co-host from my ghost hunting podcast. I'm into the supernatural and all that. So we're going to do an encore performance of Night Meds, my old podcast. Me and my co-host Alex Shinko. We're going to talk about aliens and me thinking my building is haunted and all that kind of stuff. On Wednesday, we have a guy that's directing a short film. He's going to come on and talk about that project. On Thursday, we're going to have a panel discussion about people that are trying to date during the pandemic. So what it's like to be on the front lines of dating during the pandemic. And on Friday, I'm going to have a conversation with John Fugelsang, who I don't know if you know John or not, but John has his own Sirius radio show that's on every night here in New York. And he's also always on CNN and Fox and CNBC and all those too, because he's one of these comics who also is brilliant politically. I still haven't even set up the podcast yet for Saturday or Sunday. Those are to be announced, but now I have the podcasts as well. And they're also on the website. If you go to the website, you'll see the homepage. Each day, 2 shows listed on that day, then Good Karma Podcasts, and then the Talent Gallery, all 100 comics, their headshot and their credits. Contact if you want to get in touch with us. And it's all on one website. Listen, I'm not a technical guy. I'm a boomer. So I hope I did okay building the website. I just went to Weebly, which is one of those build your own website sites. But the name of the festival is Good Karma Comedy Festival. All is one word. Good Karma Comedy Festival.weebly.com. It's also on any post about the festival. You'll see that. But that's it. Good Karma Comedy Festival.weebly.com. And what night do I have you on? What night do we do we have
I
you on?
have it on my calendar. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Oh, okay. But I mean, you're on. We have you on. And then the other thing that I wanted to tell everybody is I'm going to be making a little banner too. And if anybody ever wants to do their own satellite show, you're more than and you're more than welcome to like say it's under the festival banner. If somebody's like, I want to do a Facebook Live show and talk to some of my friends about what I think is going to happen with comedy. And we're all new comics from Jersey who only have 6 months in. Is that okay? Sure. And here's the logo for the festival. As far as I'm concerned, you're doing a festival show. Have fun. Like the sky is the limit. Not saying no to anything right now. And then, and again,
let me ask
hopefully
you.
next year it's live.
Let me ask you a question then,
Sure.
because I'm all about marketing and cross promoting.
Sure.
It's okay to use your banner and have a festival show.
Yes.
So your festival starts this coming Monday.
Monday through Sunday.
So how about if Monday through Sunday, every show I do is a festival show?
I'm more than happy to say that all those shows are under the festival banner. And
I would be proud to do that.
And and if you send me like a link or something, I can even like throw up a page on the website to like, say that you're doing this and it's a satellite show of the festival, and click on here to know more or to get in touch with Linda or to what, I don't know if we could put up, 5 or 6 or 7 links in advance for your show, but maybe we could set something up where they can go straight to you. How do you navigate to your show?
Zoom to Facebook Live, and then it archives to Spotify, Facebook fan page, and YouTube.
So you just send me whatever it is you want me to put up, and I'll create a page that says satellite shows, and you'll be right there at the top.
You got it.
And then I don't even know if I'm going to have time to develop a logo. So if you just want to like cut up a screen cap or take a screenshot of the whatever, I'm fine with it. But
I'll do that.
But I'd be happy to happy to do that. Happy to add a page and happy to have you as one of the satellite shows of the fest.
You got it. Yeah, my word. Every single show starting Monday all the way through next Sunday will be for Good Karma Comedy Festival.com.
Well, and it would be good. And I don't want to, get out over my skis here, but okay. It's like, I think there's going to be, even when we go back to live comedy, I think because we all experience this, remote comedy is going to be more a part of everybody's lives. Yeah. I don't think it's going to totally go away. Like people used to just watch Netflix or TV. I think now some people will watch remote shows. So even if we go live next year, we could still do a remote show in Vegas through you during the festival. While that's live here, we're doing a remote there. I mean, now that this remote cat is out of the bag, you can do stuff globally. One of my students is Israeli. I'm like, you could do a remote show from Tel Aviv if you want. We could do, a satellite show from anywhere in the world now. It's not a live show. It's a remote show. It's a remote broadcast. But now the sky's the limit. So next year, even if we're live here, maybe we could start something out there because there's a lot of great comics out there. There's a lot of great comics in Vegas.
This is the most humbling thing I've ever done.
What, being a comic in Vegas?
No, being on a Zoom show and interviewing and getting comedians
with
1 to 45 years experience to tell me everything they've accomplished. Talk about humbling.
Well, you do a great service for folks, like even creating this venue. And I've watched pieces of your thing here and there. You get some names, you get some folks on, you get some real people on. You know how I do it? It's not just you and some open micer in a basement. You get some people on, which is good.
And I do it because I'm nice. I don't just like, I don't get upset if they need to I waited for 3 months for Sinbad.
Right.
Without getting upset, you've got to be nice. People, if you're anybody, could forget, as I did forget your appointment today.
Oh, that's fine. But you know what I have also found out as I've been in this for a while, that old saying, the bigger they are, the nicer they are. Some of the nicest people I know in this business are big name folks. Colin Quinn, sweet guy. Gary Greenberg, the head writer of Kimmel, is not a nicer guy on the face of the planet. You could just keep going. It's amazing the number of genuinely, Lori Kilmartin, wonderful person. I mean, you would be Karen Bergreen, fantastic. You would be amazed at the, and I think a lot of the toxicity in the business, to be honest, is I think is a lot of times from people still feeling like they have to elbow their way through and they're competing.
Yes.
You know, whether they've been around for a little while and they're cynical, or whether they're new and they're in a rush. I just kind of feel like it's people that can't breathe. Maybe that's some of the toxicity, because I don't think I have ever, you know, people make fun of movie and TV executives. I don't think I have ever done a real project where anybody's ever been rude to me. You know what I mean?
Wow,
Like,
that's
you do
great.
something for real and they're nice. The talent is nice. The people involved is nice. You know, I mean, it's when these, you know, civil wars break out on Facebook between cliques when it gets nasty. You know, I
Yes,
mean,
yes.
but just between you and me, if Facebook disappeared tomorrow, I'd be fine with it. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Yeah, it's just you need it for work, but it's not, you know. But
Yes.
I mean, you're right. The people that are, if you're nice to people, you would be amazed the way that people that you don't think would ever take the time, whatever, will treat you. One quick story, because I know you got to go. Okay. So a billion years ago.
I really don't have to go.
Oh, okay. So, but one quick
nothing
story.
till 9, nothing till midnight your time. You can talk. I got minutes to burn up.
Well, just I remember, I'm going to say it had to be 10 years ago. So, you know, maybe a little longer, maybe 12. So I wasn't a kid. I'd been around for a while, and I was doing a show at the Cornelia Street Cafe, here in New York City, down in the West Village. A friend of mine, John Morrison, produced it. John would get great comics on the headline. He would, you know, he'd get Colin and he'd get Rachel Feinstein, and he'd get just these really good comics, the headline. And then folks that some New Yorkers knew, new folks, just a whole cross section. Anyway, I was going through some period where, you know, I wasn't feeling great. You know, all comics go through. I just wasn't feeling it. Things weren't going my way. I wasn't feeling it, whatever. And I did a show down there. That show maybe got paid $35 for the show type thing. And I actually needed the money. It was one of those kind of times. And I remember after the show, Peter Scolari, and for those of you who don't know who Peter Scolari is, he was on Bosom Buddies with Tom Hanks, the actor that played his roommate, Tom Hanks' roommate, on the old sitcom Bosom Buddies. And if you watch a Tom Hanks movie, Peter Scolari's often in it. He often gives him a role to play. Like in That Thing You Do, he played the Ed Sullivan character who had the Hollywood talent show that the Wonders were on when they were supposed to be on that night before they broke up. Anyway, so Peter Scolari comes up to me after the show, and he says to me, and this is going to sound like a humble brag, but I'm trying to share something. He says to me, I just want you to know, young man, that's stand-up comedy the way it should be. And I hung my hat on that for the next 6 months, right? Like, that got me through. Like, the fact that Peter Scolari walked up to me, didn't know me, tapped me on the shoulder, I turned around. That's all he had to say to me, shook my hand. I'm like, you're who I think you are, right? He's like, yeah. I'm like, you're Peter Scolari. He goes, yeah. And I'm like, I'm a big fan too. And he said, thank you or whatever. But like moments like that, when they happen to us more than you think. And that's, I mean, you'd be amazed at the amount of generosity that a lot of people have in this business.
Yes.
I think especially after they have a little bit of success in the business. So maybe they're not worrying about their place in the pecking order, or they're not worrying about paying their electric bill.
Yes.
They kind of feel like I kind of got mine going on. I'm feeling good. That person will sit down and talk to you about how to handle hecklers or what it was like to do their first college show. You'll be amazed that you'll be sitting and Jim Gaffigan will be like talking to you like a person. And you'll be, I mean, I've known Jim for years. I'm talking about new comics. When he drops into you'll be shocked at the way these guys are. Friend of
I
mine was,
learned the
yeah,
people,
go
the
ahead.
quality of people that I get on here tell me the best. This is like a master class for me to learn,
Right.
let alone people. They drop the biggest nuggets of information on their business, you know?
Right. Now, don't get me wrong. You got your assholes out there too. Don't get me wrong. You got your assholes out there too. But yeah, it is amazing to me how nice a lot of people can be, and people pretty far up the food chain. You know, bless you.
Thank
Um,
you.
But and I think what you're doing again. Let me just thank you again, because I think you are doing a real service just even doing this. You know, yeah.
I would live under a bridge to do this. It costs about $1,200 a month for everything I'm choosing to have other people do for me,
Right.
because I'm a veteran and I have a brain injury. So
Right.
you don't want me messing around with certain things, you know?
No,
God
but
knows it'll go into ISIS's hands if I touch it.
it is amazing. I think it's an important thing when people are bridges and conduits to other things, you know, and quite frankly, maybe, you know, given the way that social media is and Facebook Live and Instagram and all that, and this is going to be no disrespect meant to him, but maybe a lot of younger people who really don't know who Sinbad might be might stumble across him on your show or some social media that's a reflection of your show and go, oh, wow. And what's the name of that Christmas movie? Was Arnold Schwarzenegger? I need to watch that now. You just be amazed. You just be amazed at the way that it, you know, it keeps us all, it keeps us all tied in and aware to one another. And right now, with everything that's going on, that's more important than it's ever been, you know.
I used Zoom for my very first time. I don't know if you heard me ever say this before, but I used Zoom just to try it out. Everybody's talking about it. And I thought, why don't I get my friend on Zoom? And she was so depressed, visibly depressed. But by the time we got done bantering, her spirits lifted, my spirits lifted. I haven't stopped since.
And can I tell you something else? We all have a little bit of an ego in this. So these Zoom shows are great for us because we all like pretended when we were 8 what it would be like to be on Johnny Carson's couch.
Yeah.
And now we're on somebody's couch. Now we're having that conversation. We're telling those war stories. We're creating those moments, you know, that Johnny used to have, or Letterman used to have, or now Colbert has, or now Fallon has, or Kimmel has. We all sat there. Every actor in the world, and don't tell me you haven't, have thought about the way you would conduct yourself if you were sitting on a talk show, or have thought about what you would say in your Oscar acceptance speech. And don't say you haven't. Everybody's pretended that, whether they pretended it as a kid or whether they still pretended it as an adult, you know, to positively visualize. And now everybody can create that. Everybody gets to be on somebody's couch now. And that used to be the big thing. I was too young for that generation, but that generation used to say the big thing was getting on Carson's couch. Did you make it to the couch? Did he ask you over? You know, well, now we get to be on everybody's couch. I got to be on Linda's couch. Earlier, I got to be on Robert's couch. And tomorrow I'll get to be on another couch. And we all love that. Who doesn't love just yammering away, you know, and maybe getting a laugh in between. You know?
Totally. I'll laugh at anything that's funny for people that come on. They're like, I can't stand the shutdown because I'm not in front of live people. Tell me some jokes. I'm the best laugher in any audience.
Yeah. And I think John Fugelsang actually mentioned this to me, and I agree with him. I think that now that we're starting to realize this wasn't a 3-month thing,
yes,
and these shows are part of the new normal, it is making artists who use remote shows, so comics definitely, it is forcing us to practice a different discipline and work a different set of muscles than we do on a live show.
yes.
Which, if nothing else, is an excellent aerobic artistic exercise. Even if, you know, it's like people will say like, well, why would I want to take an improv class? Nobody does improv professionally for a living except for a handful of guys that ended up on Whose Line Is It Anyway? Or somebody who gets so good that they end up on a sketch comedy show like an Amy Poehler or whatever. Well, you want to do it because of the toolkit it gives you and the discipline it gives you and the things you discover about yourself. And that's going to be the same thing from these shows. Even if we never do another one after we find a vaccine, just those practicing those muscles that we hardly ever use and working that discipline, that's what these shows are good for. Yes. And, plus, I hate to tell you folks, but I think this is now part of our future. Yep. Like these shows are going to be around on some level. They may,
At the beginning, when I was interviewing comedians, they would tell me, no way, I'm not going to do any comedy on Zoom. And even Bobby Collins was one of those, and he's now doing Zoom with Debbie Baza.
And Bobby's an excellent example. I'll bet you if you were at the Kate in Connecticut and you were a local MC and Bobby Collins was the headliner, sitting in the green room, Bobby would answer any question you had for him.
Oh, wow.
I'm sure he would. I'm sure Bobby, if you said to Bobby and you were new at this, what do you do when something happened? Or did this ever happen? Or what was your best? What was your worst? I'll bet you, Bobby, as long as you weren't getting in the way of a phone call, or as long as he wasn't about to go up or something, in that hour where everybody's getting the food from the takeout restaurant delivered over to the green room or whatever, I'll bet you Bobby would happily answer any questions you had as pleasantly as possible. That's what I'm talking about with a lot of these guys. I featured for Gilbert Gottfried once. Really fascinating conversation for like 20 minutes before the show. Just wonderful to have his ear. And was he busy as hell? And are we the best friends in the world now? No, but was it a nice conversation in the moment? Absolutely. And that's the kind of thing I'm talking about.
Wow. Before we head off into the sunset here tonight, one question I'd love to know from you.
Sure.
What is, I guess it's a two-part question now.
Good.
So what's one thing that a military person you entertained with Armed Forces Entertainment, did a military person ever come up to you afterwards and say something you'll never forget? And also the same question about any comedian who's said something profound that you'll never forget.
Well, the comedian one is easier for me probably because, we've been a part of that for so long and so many people have said so many nice things to you. And sometimes it's as simple as like, doing a show with Robin Williams to stand up in New York and never having meeting him in his life and walking off stage and him smiling at you and nodding and going, good stuff. Just something as simple as that. But I think as far as like something somebody said to me, one time I asked Lewis Black, who I think is a very smart comic and does a lot of political stuff, how do you do what you do? And he goes, I do two for them and one for me.
Wow.
And I thought that was very enlightening. I do two for them and one for me. What else? Oh my God. It's just like so many things.
Okay, I'll tell you
about Dan Vitale. Do you remember who Dan Vitale was? He was on Saturday Night Live. Dan one time said to me, you'll start getting stuff the minute you stop caring about whether or not you get stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And you do one and I'll think of the military one.
Okay, I'm going to tell you about the best experience entertaining the troops, and that's veterans for me. I wasn't even at a show. I'm a veteran. I went to the VA hospital in the middle of the night. I was sick and I was waiting for the doctor and they were backlogged. I said, I'm going to go get a cup of coffee. Sometimes they don't even let you do that if you're waiting for a doctor, but they let me. So I went around the corner to the commissary in the middle of the night, all by myself. I'm trying to put money into the vending machine, and in wheels a veteran. It's just him and me. And I said, what are you doing here at the VA? I'm here in the emergency. What are you doing? And then I noticed he was wheeling himself in and his left kneecap was missing. He had two knees, one kneecap. I said, what the hell did the VA hospital do to you? And he goes, you aren't going to believe this. I came in 3 months ago for knee replacement. They still haven't got the part in. So every day I have to grease up my knee, keep it lubricated. So when the knee he's in there as a hostage waiting for a knee replacement, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, I'm just waiting for the doctor. So can I tell you all my comedy? And he goes, sure. So I just started in telling him, my newest set, anything
Right.
that came to my mind, anything in the room, making him laugh. I get there's tears coming out of his eyes.
Right.
And he tells me, do you know what you comedians do to us when you tell us jokes? And I said, I got an idea, but tell me. And he said, you make us forget everything that the government made us do for them. And that's
Right.
where I come up with the line, when I'm making you laugh and forget all the bullshit our country made you do so I can sling jokes in English, but that he gave me the idea for a joke because it's based on truth. And he started crying. He says, do you know when the last time was anybody entertained me in the military? And I said, no. And he goes, in Vietnam, when Bob Hope came.
Wow.
And you just reminded me, not that I was anywhere near as good as Bob Hope, but he said, you just reminded me. That's why I was crying. He was envisioning having a good flashback for a
Right.
change.
Right. No, I remember that. And actually, now that you mention it, mine is kind of like a much kind of like that, but not nearly as intense. I
Yeah.
remember one time, and I don't know if we were in Saudi Arabia. It was either Saudi Arabia or Bahrain, one of the two. But I remember one time something went on where we weren't allowed to leave our tents because they thought something was happening. So we had to stay in our tents. I think there was even like a siren that told us to stay in our tents. Then after we got the all clear, I went to whatever they call it where they all congregate. They had like the equivalent of a student hall, like you had in college. I don't know what you call it in the military. But I remember one guy, I remember one guy coming up to me and going, thank you for doing this. And I said, well, they're paying me pretty well, and you're doing all the heavy lifting, thinking I'm going to be thinking that's funny. And he goes, yeah, but I signed up for this. You didn't. And and I think he meant like the air raid sirens we had just been through and the perceived danger, not the show itself. And
Wow.
yeah, and it was just, and the thing is, it's kind of that gallows humor where there's so much on the line that it's just this quiet sort of nice moment. Like it's not overly emotional, whatever. It's just like a nice, quiet, heartfelt thank you. You know, it's
Absolutely.
it's almost like if you almost miss it if you don't listen. It's like you almost miss it. It's so it's so genuine and quiet. That thank you. You know, and I remember that. And then the other thing was a nice moment, although I don't know if this counts, where I was on the Indian. We were on the aircraft carrier in the Indian Ocean, and the captain, who was actually a cool dude, and some of the officers were a little uptight, but this captain of this ship was a cool dude, and he said, "So don't do any jokes about any pregnancies on the boat, because apparently every once in a while there's an affair, and somebody has to be airlifted off the boat because they no longer can be there because it's whatever." Yeah, I don't know what. Well, anyway, so of course I had to open one show with, captain is proud of the Cracker Jack crew. How many ever landings without an accident, plus only 17 pregnancies so since we left port, or something like that. And the guys all hooting out. Well, the next day, the captain had 4 Marines mock arrest me, and they did like a mock court martial. Like he had 4 Marines in the middle of my act walk on stage and make me turn around and handcuff me and walk me out. Like,
Oh my
and
gosh.
and it was just like, and the guys like that even more than they like my joke. And it's just moments like that, and that guy could have been a jerk. I could have gotten in trouble for doing that joke. And you know what? Now I probably wouldn't do it. That was a while back. I'd probably be more respectful. Sometimes you get this little rebel in you, like, oh, I can't do a joke about that. Watch this,
Yes.
which is stupid. But anyway,
Yes.
but that was so cool. And to this day, my mom has in her house, I don't even get to keep the picture, 4 big ass Marines that look like they're, heavyweight contenders standing over top of me with me like on my knees with my hands cuffed behind me on the flight deck of an aircraft carrier with 500 people cheering in the background, and the captain up there on the balcony looking down at me and pointing off to the side like, there's the brig, take him there. We're going to do the court martial over there. And it was a beautiful moment.
Oh, that is so great. Wow.
Yeah.
Things like that you never forget.
No. I mean, that's almost 20 years ago now. And no, you never forget that. You absolutely never forget that.
And that's
Linda,
what we need. We need to remember the good things, not the bad. You know, that's a great thing to remember too. You've been awesome to be on here with me so long.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. Again, I'm on Kimmel's couch. Of course,
Yes.
I'm happy. I'm good. We need to get a live talk show in Vegas. That's
Yes,
what we need to
please.
get you to do.
Yes, please.
Get you a live show in Vegas.
I would love for a casino or a club, a major club, to hire me to interview all their entertainers. Geez, I think I've proved I can do it.
Not only that, but don't a lot of those places have like their own television stations, like within the?
And
So you could do it like it just in house.
yes.
Like in Casino, isn't the bad guy in Casino? Didn't he used to give gambling tips in house on the in-house TV system or something?
Yes.
You could do something like that for out there now.
Somebody get me. You got to get me. I'm telling you, I can do this. I'm a pro. Hey, Frank, let's plug the festival one more time. I'll let you do it.
All right. Once again, the link is up everywhere, but the name of it, if you're looking for it, is Good Karma Comedy Festival. All is one word. Good Karma Comedy Festival.weebly.com. Weebly is your own site. goodcomedyfestival.weebly.com. I'm Frank Vignola, Vignola on Facebook. Frank Vignola Comedian. There's all kinds of stuff for the festival all over my Facebook page, and hopefully people will be hearing about it because there's over 100 people in it. So hopefully people will be posting about it all over them.
They better be.
And comics from all over the country: Vegas, San Francisco, Maine, Florida, Texas. We got them from, a lot of New Yorkers. I'm not going to lie to you, but we got a lot of other people too.
I think you should have a contest. Who makes the most posts? Who shares it the most times?
We were talking about that, like what would be the mechanism if we did have a contest. I was talking with some friends about that, and it just seemed remote. That would be really, really tough to do versus a live show, and then judging fairly somebody's performance remotely versus seeing them live. So I'm going to save that for another time. And in the meantime, just make it all inclusive, a safe space, all tolerant, and everybody can play.
Yes.
And then we'll deal with cash and prizes maybe down the road someday.
I get you. Okay, so folks, you got to go and to Frank Vignola Comedian on Facebook, or Good Karma Comedy Festival.weebly.com. And it starts Monday, 7 and 9 p.m. are the show times, Eastern Daytime, whatever,
Yes.
Eastern.
7 and 9 are the comedy shows. 4 o'clock every day is the podcast. 3 shows a day. 4, 7, 9.
7 and 9. Got it.
Cool.
Let's do this, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank
for
you
having me
so
on,
much,
Linda.
Frank.
And I'll see you next week.
Yes, I'll see you next week. And
Cool.
I'll be promoting it on every show I do Monday through next Sunday.
Send me all that stuff on Facebook. You will be the first satellite show I put up. I'll make a page
Thank you.
tomorrow.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Frank Vignola
There you
Comedian.
go.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Love you a lot.
Everybody's talking.